Hi everyone, this is Joe Rebelo, known in the martial arts world and the internet as Kenpojoe. Today we're discussing a very important topic. What makes it Kenpo? Throughout my martial arts career, I have many martial arts from different styles and disciplines always ask me, okay, what is Kenpo and how does it different from, say, karate or other martial arts disciplines? So let's go over a couple of the salient features of what makes Kenpo. Well, first of all, originally from mainland China, it was known as Chuan Fa in Mandarin. Now again, the term is law of the fist. Now, when we initially look at Chuan Fa is predominantly a technique-based system. And why was it done that way? Well, in ancient times, especially during the Mongol invasion of mainland China, when the Han Chinese had to educate the general public to martial arts, to help them enable them to rebel against the Qing invaders and the Qing rulers of the Mongols, they didn't have time to teach them an extensive kung fu system. They didn't have time to teach them the whole Hung Gar system or styles such as that. But what they did have time to teach them is basic fundamental self-defense techniques against various types of attacks. So they could take out the local tax collector or whoever was bothering them from the Mongols. And what they did is they combined the various animal styles in a basic fundamental fashion against basic fundamental techniques that worked against basic fundamental attacks. What does that mean? Well, that means everything from grabs, pushes, punches, kicks, holds and hugs, locks and chokes, weapons, multiple attacks, and of course, more than one person, multiple attackers. These are the basic categories that were put in regards to Kenpo. And again, when we look at what comprises a Kenpo technique, what separates it from karate? Well, first of all, first important tools that we learn are the use of the vertical fist, or standing fist as the Chinese would refer to it. If you study Okinawan and Japanese, you may know it as tate-suki. That same hand position, another important term we use in Kenpo is position recognition. If I utilize this hand in a thrusting fashion, we see it as a standing fist. You may know it as a standing fist, a straight blast, vertical thrust, a thrust punch. But irregardless of that, it is a standing fist, meaning the natural alignment of my arm from the point of my knuckles to my wrist, to my elbow, to my shoulder, and the anchoring of my elbow, the slight bend, enable me, like in Aikido, the unbendable arm, it is a natural alignment which has great strength, even though the arm is not locked out completely. But that alignment is prevalent to generating ki or chi or energy in relationship to body alignment. Also, the alignment of the muscles, ligaments, and nerve endings, the veins and arteries within the body are all properly aligned in that vertical alignment. Think about it. When we walk or stand, we don't put our hands like this in a horizontal position, do we? No, when we relax naturally, our arms relax in a vertical alignment. See what I mean? That position is also very important and one of the key ingredient weapons in the art of Kenpo, in its myriad of incarnations, whether, as we talked about earlier, Chinese Chuan Fa, later emigrating to Okinawa and becoming Kenpo. And again, I'm half Puerto Rican. And in traditional Spanish, when you say my name is, you say yo me llamo. Y for yo, double L for llamo. Being Puerto Rican in our Puerto Rican dialect, we say yo me llamo with a J sound instead. When the Okinawans were learning, again, it was a center point of religion and mercantilism. If you wanted to promote a religion, you wanted to go from China to Japan, you had to go to Okinawa. You wanted to go from China to Korea, you could go by landmass or you could go by ship. You wanted to go to the Philippines, again, you had to go to Okinawa as a central refueling point, promoting your religion, promoting your wares, whatever. The Ryukyu Islands. Because of their indigenous Okinawan language, when they saw the two characters, they saw the character of Chuan as Ken. They saw the character for law as Po. So they utilized the term in that association with their indigenous Okinawan language for Kenpo. As the art emigrated from Okinawa to Japan, the Japanese language and Japanese syntax when the individual words of Ken and Po were placed together, the N sound was converted to an M sound. Did you know that the Kenpo is the term for Japan's constitution? So, Kenpo, this law of the fist, when it emigrated to Japan, was going from Kenpo to Kenpo. Now, of course, if they went north, they went to Korea. The character for fist in Korea is Kwon. The term for law, or method in some instances, is Bop. So in Korea, Kenpo is referred to as Kwon Bop. In Indonesia and the Indonesian archipelago, many times you will hear a variation on that. You will hear of the term in Cantonese, Jikundo, kun meaning fist. In Indonesia, because of its reference and distance from southern China, they would use kun tao. And instead of dao for law with a D sound, they would use a T sound, fist way. But again, predominantly, Kenpo is known as the law of the fist. We talked about this vertical position in a linear fashion. Well, what happens when it comes out in a circular fashion? At that point, we utilize the back fist or back knuckle. If you do Okinawan Japanese martial arts, you know this term as uraken. Some people pronounce it uraken. Some will fuse the fist and utilize the elbow as the main point of rotation to strike. Others, in a whip-like motion, will allow the wrist to relax and only tense at the moment of impact. This creates a snapping or whipping motion like so. But the key ingredient is here. As opposed to the fused fist, I strike, you can hear the slap. When I hit with only the back of my two knuckles, like a ball bearing, Professor Chow, the wonderful pictures of him standing, his knuckles looking like ball bearings under flesh. When you hit with a snapping action, you hear a distinct sound because only those two major metacarpals are striking. Only the back of those two knuckles are striking. And remember, the smaller the striking surface, the deeper the penetration. Another mainstay of the art of Kenpo is the hammer fist. In Japanese, tetsui o hansui, the iron hammer. The beauty of this, many years ago, in one of the first UFCs, if not the first UFC, if I'm not mistaken, there was a friend of mine who did White Tiger Kenpo, Keith Hackney. And everyone during that competition were breaking their hands. I remember this Dutch Muay Thai expert. No, knuckles broken and shattered. All these people were having injuries. And Keith had to fight a 660-pound sumo wrestler and knocked him out with hammer fists and heel palms. And when he went backstage, they went, how many knuckles or fingers in your hand he broke? He went, none. Because of the weapons he was using. The hammer fist. Again, remember, when you use a hammer, you nail your opponent. Many of the movements that we may use in Japanese and Okinawan arts as uke, or to block. And again, block doesn't mean to block, it means to receive. I'm going to receive that attack and do something to it. You're going to receive that pain I give you. But when we utilize this, what is the main weapon? Inward block, downward block, whether you call it soto uke or chudan uke or geidan barai in different disciplines, what am I hitting with? I hit with the hammer. And many of the Kenpo disciplines, they say, I'm not blocking you, I'm hitting you. Whatever limb you give me, I destroy. Kenpo makes no apologies for the violent nature that what it is. Kenpo makes no apologies for the street fighting elements that it is. Many people in certain Oriental cultures, when you mention the term Chuan Fa Kenpo, they get a very disturbed look because when they think of Kenpo, they think of street fighting. They think of two guys out in the alleyway smashing each other with a garbage can and doing a curb stomp on somebody. And they're not far off. This is a practical, pragmatic, and at times violent and vicious system. I jokingly have a wonderful phrase. I'm going to make the t-shirts soon. Make sure you buy them. Kenpo, how to rip, gouge, maim, and mutilate for fun and profit. And that's the key. So, the back fist, the hammer fist. Another important ingredient from the Chinese that we learn in formalization of Kenpo is iron fist and poison hand. There are many closed fist and semi-closed fist actions that are all associated with the iron fist. We don't just hit with the back of the fist, we hit with the front of the fist, the bottom of the fist, the top of the fist, and even the inside of the fist. The tiger's paw or raking knuckle, the reverse hammer fist, the back knuckle or back fist. All these different parts of the fist are all utilized in various systems of Kenpo. Also, the specialized movements, the phoenix eye fist, and called many different names. I've heard it called everything from a phoenix eye to a buffalo horn to, again, the eye of the phoenix, as you see from the closed eye, like a person closing the eye. Again, the phoenix symbolizing the empress. That middle knuckle strike, and also taking the thumb. And again, certain people do it in two configurations. Some will press directly downward along the top of the index finger, pressing it for backup mass. Others will place the thumb and drive the pointer thumb directly into the index finger nail. This stops the finger from going back and locks it into place, striking many vital points as well as acupuncture points within the body. Next is Nakade-ken, or the middle knuckle fist. Some people call it the eagle's beak. Others call it the buffalo horn. Irregard, some people call it the dragon's head. By taking my index finger, I close my other three fingers into a conventional fist and straighten my index finger flat against my hand. I then wrap my thumb around that index finger. The lateral pressure of the thumb pressing in and pushing down locks it in place. What does it lock? The middle knuckle of the fist. By protruding my middle knuckle and pressing down with my index finger flat against the meat of my thumb and locking it like so, it stops the middle finger from retracting. Think of any punch you do, and instead of hitting with two major knuckles, striking with that one knuckle, the effect would be devastating. Not only do we thrust with it, as we alluded to earlier, we can also rake with it. Raking with a closed hand is just as important as raking with an open claw. Whether we thrust with a middle knuckle, hammer and compound the rake with a middle knuckle downward or upward, inward or outward, the middle knuckle is one of the devastating closed fist weapons that we utilize in the art of Kenpo. Let's go on. Another individual, you don't see it a lot, only in certain indigenous Kenpo systems, is the, some people call it the arrow fist. And this is, again, a similar action where we press the thumb directly laterally against the two nails of the index and middle finger. And that's the key, that this action fits in various natural points of the body, natural cavities of the body. I like to paraphrase a wonderful Starfleet captain: a finger will boldly go where no fist has gone before. And at that point, we go into poison hand strikes. And we're just going to show a couple. There are many that we teach in the art of Kenpo. Why? Because they will boldly fit into various cavities and pressure points of the body that a fist will not fit. We start with the first index finger, the single spear. And again, the middle finger is actually used like a depth gauge, where by pressing it in, it can go deeper or in a shallow or deep configuration. And again, this can go into the eye socket. This will brace against the orbital rim of the eye. Again, it can also go into the armpit and numerous, again, cavities of the body. But we'll address that in vital points, etc. Next is the immortal man points the way, two-finger spear. In certain styles, in Japanese, you'll hear Nihon Nukute. And again, as you can see in this configuration, we have the natural configuration. Obviously, the middle finger is longer than the index finger. Some styles will teach you actually to curl that middle finger inwards so that the striking surface of both fingers are even upon impact. But again, the natural action of striking with the longest finger. You know, we talk about it. It might not be the most prevalent gesture in many cultures, but simply stated, the middle finger is the longest finger there is. If you want to get the deepest amount of penetration, it doesn't have much backup mass, but to strike with the length of that middle finger. Also, you'll see one of the mudras that are taught with the 3-finger spear, where again, we lock and, hey, that's okay. That's known as the male mudra, like so. The female mudra you'll see occasionally is pressing and closing like holding a sewing needle. Well, what that does, it tenses the structure of the index finger in a striking fashion to stab and pierce or slice with the other fingers to rip and tear. From there, we go into claws. We have a 2-finger, the crab claw. Again, here's a wonderful action you can do. Each finger goes into the eye socket, and the knuckle here strikes the philtrum below the nose. So you're striking the philtrum. This causes incredible pain. It's one of the nerve centers of the face as you strike with both fingers into the eyes. And of course, with every movement, we can do this vertically, horizontally, inverted vertical, or inverted horizontal, inverted vertical. Again, the 4 major positions of rotational torque. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And utilizing all these various poison hand strikes in any of those given configurations. Next, the 3-finger claw. This is actually the symbol of my school with a Southern style eagle claw. As you can see there, 2 fingers in the thumb. And again, no, Southern style eagle claw. Here's a decorative phrase for you. The 72 ways of tearing muscle off bone and tendon from sinew. That's what eagle claw used to be called. Think about that. 72 ways that you can tear a muscle off the bone with this particular alignment. Or the other, the Northern style eagle claw, which many of you may know through the karate circles as tiger mouth, or in Japanese, koko, like a cup of cocoa. Whether it be horizontal, vertical, inverted horizontal, or inverted vertical, still that grasping action. Professor Chow, this was one of the favorite techniques to teach. When I studied with a gentleman, Bill Massarelli, in the system of Kashi Kempo, one of the first open hand strikes they taught was the Adam's apple grab. Strike, close, rip out the Adam's apple. I'm a white belt. And that's the first thing I'm learning is how to rip somebody's throat out. Cool. But again, learning in configurations, we cross-reference to art such as Uechi-Ryu. Morote, nukate. Grab the clavicle, break it. A classic movement from a classic Uechi-Ryu kata. Great Kenpo technique. Break a guy's clavicle, lift your arm now. It hurts to breathe, let alone raise an arm to punch someone. From there, we have, again, the closed hand claw to the spread hand claw, the tiger claw. And again, the first 2 fingers are designed on a horizontal plane to go into the eye sockets. The rest of the fingers are designed to grab the face. Now here's an interesting fact, which I'm going to demonstrate on myself, and you can laugh at your leisure. I take my first 2 fingers, I drive them into the eyes, I pinch here. Now see the pinky and see the thumb? Once I do that, I can't bite you. I can't bite you. Oh, if I do, by pressing laterally on the inside of my mouth, if I try to bite, I bite the own flesh on the inside of my mouth off. Again, tiger claw. Yeah, I know, you had to laugh. You thought of that movie where that guy says and guy kicks him in the groin. I know what you thought. I know what you thought. So when I looked in certain texts, I saw 4-finger claw. And I'm like, what in the world is a 4-finger claw? I got 2, I got 3, I got 5. How do I get 4? Hungar. Hungar Kung Fu. Extending the index finger and compounding its action. I can heel palm, I can rip, I can poke. I can grab the ear, I can yank it and turn it and thrust with that, again, ippon ken, right? That ippon nukate, that single finger thread. So I grab, I rip, I tear, I poke. I would never invert and slap him, rip it back and poke him again. I would never come up under his chin, slap his chin up and bang, poke him in the throat, grab his shirt, pull him in, bam, sandwiching elbow. Have a nice day. You bet I can, or else I wouldn't be talking to you about it. But that's the beauty of the art. So again, we look at these different elements. We look at these different poison hand strikes. And this is one of the critical ingredients that identifies Kenpo as Kenpo. We don't do this every 40-second technique on a Tuesday. We do this constantly and consistency. Why? Why do we do it this way? Because it's the great equalizer. I can be a small child, I can be an elderly woman, and yet I can use these various actions to rip, gouge, tear, all right, and mutilate. Maybe. Remember, what's the price of your life? What is it worth to you to survive a violent encounter? A finger will boldly go where a fist has gone before. Little old lady, big bully comes up, yeah, poke. I've done that to full-grown professional wrestlers and bodybuilders and watch them. Remember, in MMA, if a person is struck with one of these fouls, how long do they give them to recover? 5 minutes. I don't know about you, but in a real fight, that's an eternity. I hope you've enjoyed this small dissertation. Oh, let's go over one last thing before we go, since we're working on the upper body, shall we? And that is elbows. Elbows, a hard, sharp, bony surface, with the exception of the funny bone underneath, is an incredibly powerful weapon. The late great Ed Parker, when teaching Kenpo and teaching the use of the sandwiching elbow, used in many martial arts, had a wonderful phrase. When you use a brace, it keeps his face from flying off into space. Whether upward, inward, outward, downward, on a linear path or on a circular path, an elbow is a devastating strike. Many of our Kenpo techniques have utilization not only of elbows, but compounding elbows into various strikes. This is the beauty of the art of Kenpo. There's no greater feeling at the end of a fight with a Kenpo practitioner when your opponent has to say one of the following things. To himself, he says, what did he hit me with? Or, more importantly, he says to himself, I never saw what hit me. And that's one of the important ingredients of Kenpo. Kenpo purposely works on object obscurity. We strike at particular angles that the opponent never sees. I don't want my opponent to see the move. He'll block it. He'll defend himself against it. I want to strike him in such a way that when I use various actions, my opponent never sees the strike. If I'm attacked by a person, we talk about another action with the backhand. The opposite of a closed fist is an open hand. Backhand. If you do Japanese and Okinawan martial arts, you know it as haishu, with the striking with the backhand. You can also do it with the aforementioned immortal man strike. Some people call it the whipping tail of the dragon. Sharpen your fingernails, you can use it and slice on a horizontal plane. I've done it myself. It works. So this is just a small primer. This is just an intro to you as a martial arts practitioner who buys Masters Magazine and buys EM3 videos. And I want this to be an inspiration to you to go, wow, you know, not only did I learn something about Kenpo, I just learned something about my martial art that I do. I never thought, you know, I've learned it in class and we do it, you know, we have learned it from a book of my sensei or Sabumnim or Sifu. And, you know, but I know that we never talked about it to this extent. Cool. If I've answered a question, if I've enlightened you, guess what? I did my job. This is Joe Rebelo here teaching you what makes it Kenpo. And again, this is just a brief primer. This is just a taste of what makes it Kenpo. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you look forward to it. I hope that you pick up the future DVD. And I hope that you keep purchasing from EM3 Video and keep reading and studying and learning with Masters Magazine. Thank you.
Do you know the tiger, turtle, and rhino are almost extinct? Do you know that they are still being hunted? Do you know that the main cause is because people buy souvenirs, traditional Asian medicines, and delicacies made from endangered species? Do you know that this can be stopped? Do you know that you can help? Please tell others that when the buying stops, the killing can too. Thank you.
Kung Fu is attractive, steady, clever, elegant, powerful. It is a foundation of Chinese culture, inherited from our ancestors. Like tigers, they are a treasure of our world. We must pass these treasures to our children. Please do not buy or use any tiger products. Together, let's stop the trade in tiger forever. When the buying stops, the killing can too.